Good morning and welcome back. Welcome back to Who Am I? That show where every day we ask the question, Who am I? Who am I? And I don't mean to do it in a pedantic, I'm going to tell you everything and you're just going to listen and I'm going to say it every day the same way. It's more like I want to authentically explore this question. It's a really important question, and how your equipment works, and what the rules of the field that you're embedded in, all of that really matters. Really matters to your ability, speaks to your ability to be able to be effective, to have your desires come to fruition, to have you be able to look out on the world and see something that you want and then go about getting it. How do you do that? Well, you got to understand who you are. You have to understand what the field is, what the this matrix, you could say, that we are embedded. Actually, we're not just embedded in the matrix. We are matrixed in to the rest of the field. And we're going to talk about what that means. We're also, on the one hand, in a manner of speaking, we are not pushing back against any particular anybody. We're not blaming anybody for this problem that for whatever problems we've got. I can feel so many energies surging within me that want to express, want to get to a place where we understand what's known, what's not known, who we are, and how it works. Because I'm telling you, it's going to change the game. It's going to change the 21st century in the same way that the discovery of electromagnetic fields just changed the 20th century. It gave us everything. That gave us, radar at the beginning, and then radio and television, and ultimately, what all has it given us? Flight instruments. It's changed the world. Well, what's going to change the next century, or this century, actually, think of ourselves as being like at the beginning of the 20th century, having no idea of what's coming down the pike for us. Somebody in 1920 who has no idea what's going to be happening in 1965, that sort of thing. Right now, it looks very dark and drear in some ways, in some places. But the force of life is very strong, and the force of truth is very strong. And the truth about the nature of the world and the nature of us needs to be understood by us. Needs to be understood how good it is, and also how powerful it is, and what kind of will it has to live. The power of life to live is very, very strong. So, what are we saying? Ultimately, I believe that we are going to know who we are. And the who we are is the all are one and the one is all. And what's going on is everything that's going on is only right here and now. And the places that you go where you imagine what has come before, the past, and you imagine what's coming up, the future, all of that part is just in your own mind. It's you are imagining it. Now, I don't know about I was about to say something. One of the reasons that your inner being never looks back is she doesn't have to. Because all of the information of everything is right here and now. It's not like some of it's here and some of it's back there. And if I need to know some information about whatever, I've got to go walk back to, when it happened. Actually, this is ironic because in a way, that's exactly what you do. When you reference the past, you're actually just referencing a place on the fabric of space-time where, as the planet whizzed by when it happened, that actual place on the actual the fabric of space-time, as we whizzed by, it marked it like an enormous cosmic hard drive. The universe itself is like this big recording machine. Everything. But I digress. Although I don't digress. All of this has to do with, you have to understand what we're actually dealing with. The actual reality of the situation is important to understand the spirituality of the situation, the spirit of the situation. When you talk about the spirit of something, you're actually talking about the reality of it. If you're trying to get something across to somebody, you're trying to all right. Well, let's go back to the beginning. The beginning is, who am I? How does my equipment work? What is this matrix I'm embedded in? How does all of that work? How does my focus and my attention get me what it is I get in this world? Because what I focus on, what I put my attention on, and what frequency I am plugged into as I do this is determining the direction that I'm going in this world. And it's determining whether I'm getting the things that I want or whether I'm not getting the things that I want. It all depends on how you're focused. If you're focused on the bit of matter where you aren't getting what you want, well, so what's the point? The point is, so many points, to understand the world that we live in. I want to be able to coach this stuff. And I can, too. I really can. I even can with my children. And it's harder to be unconditional with your children. And easier at the same time, I suppose. It's easier to unconditionally love them. But is it? Because they're so close to you, their messing up or not messing up affects you. Affects you in the way that, are you prepared to be big enough that you can allow your child to be whoever they need to be, period? Even if it's dangerous or chaotic looking to you? Well, I don't know how I feel about that, but how I feel about it is I feel so close to them in my heart. It's almost like we are one. I can feel it with them. Their success is my success. And failure is not an option. Because their failure is my failure, and my failure is not an option. It's never been an option. I've never felt like... But then I've never really felt like I was failing. I'm not... I just haven't figured out exactly what I'm succeeding at yet. But boy, am I really, really, really succeeding at something. My inner self, my greater self, is on a kind of journey. Well, we all are, but and of course, duh. But it's unfolding in front of me, small me with a lowercase m. It's like you are two beings. You really, really are two beings, and very profoundly so. It's quite interesting, the two beings that you are. One is purely vibrational and connected to all things. And standing in a position that, because it's connected to all things, it's not connected to you more than it's connected to everything around you. So your desires are important, and certainly important to you, and but what your inner being is looking for and knows that it is possible, because it can see where all of our desires come together in a particular place, in a particular way. It's the win-win point. The win-win-win-win point. The place where we all get what we're looking for. Where each and every one of us feels good about themselves, is doing what we want to do, gets what we want out of the universe. Our needs are met. There is, I believe, in the win-win position. It's very interesting because, many of us have been raised with the idea that the paradigm that we're in is a win-lose. It's a win-lose. As a matter of fact, that's almost the whole meaning of the right wing, is believing in this win-lose. As opposed to we're all in this together, and somehow there is miraculously a win-win. We can all win. The thing we can't do is each and every single one of us cannot greedily pig it all to oneself. But every single one of us can live exactly the life that we would like to live. Every one of us can have what we want. Actually, the statement before that was just a little bit too strong, because there's going to be a massaging going on between desire and belief as we find our way to the win-win position. So the win-win position from a win-lose person might be, I rule the world and you guys are all my subjects. And you can't have that and have everybody else win. That you're standing in a win-lose place when you do that. And it's a chaotic position also. And it's non-conducive to the win-win point. It really is. But you know what? Oh, the waves of thoughts I'm getting. Which way to go? How do I keep this coherent in the show? What am I talking about? There needs to be a point to it all. Or I'm just, gushing words. Who am I? It's a really good question. And I believe that in the end, I'll tell you where the pathway out of our wilderness is. And if you know the show, you know what my wilderness is. I have a very short list of bad things that I would like to see improved upon planet Earth. And I don't spend very much time with them because I can't spend very much time talking about this particular bandwidth of things that I don't like before my own frequency kind of dips a bit, and I can easily get into a woe is us and talking about things that make me sad, and I don't want to do that, because we've got to keep this in a particularly high energetic place. If we're going to solve the problems of the world, we're going to have to do it from a cheerful position. You can't do it from a position of woe. You can't get to a positive place from a negative position. From a negative state of being. You can ultimately. We're all going to get there. Even those of us who are in the negative will turn to the positive at some point. We're all going to be fine. But that's not what I mean. I mean that from that negative bandwidth, you will not achieve the positive one you're looking for. At some point, you've got to switch frequencies. Switching frequencies is the only answer. So how do you fix global warming from a really positive, hopeful, the world isn't broken kind of position? Well, what I do is I try to focus on the possibilities in this world, and I try not to look too much at the specific physical reality going on at any particular time. I mean, you kind of have to glance at it from time to time. It's like the road, the road. You have to kind of keep you don't stare at all of the specific gravel or pieces of asphalt or whatever is the road's made of. You don't stare at the details but you have to kind of keep your eye on the road. But you're not really thinking about the road. And this is all an analogy to think about the field around you, the rolling manifestation of the field around you. Think of it as the road underneath your vehicle. And you do kind of, as you move through it, and whether you're running or whether you're walking or whether you're sleeping or whether you're driving, all these different things have you moving through the field at different speeds, right? Whatever speed you're moving through the field. Think of the materially manifested world around you as the road. And you're wherever you are, say you're in Denver and you're headed for, where should we head for this time? Let's head for Hartford, Connecticut. You're in Denver and you're headed for Hartford, Connecticut. Now, the way you do this in a car, and this is actually kind of the way you do it in your physical body too. This is also going to apply. And the road, the analogy is the road under the wheels of your car is just the world around you, And so how do you do it? In your mind, you have the concept of Hartford. You know where you're headed. In reality, you are in a particular place on the grid starting out. And now you're starting out. You've taken off and you're driving down the road. Maybe it's night and all you can see is just 200 yards ahead of you, or however far I don't know how far the beams go, but you can see that far ahead of you. That's as far as you can see. And that's all you need to see. But you aren't staring at the road. You're looking ahead. You're not overly fixated on the exact details of what's around you, but you're using the detail. You're using where you are to get the next place and the next place and the next place. And if you keep your eyes on the prize, you'll end up in Hartford. Why is that a good analogy? Because sometimes as human beings, we don't realize that the physical world around us is in motion. And we are moving through it in a way. I think that the change is getting fast enough now that I think that some human beings are starting to recognize, oh, this is how it works. And the idea is not to attach to the objects around you, although you have to use them to, I'm getting too abstract. And I actually have points. The pathway out of our problems, which I never did list. I talked about my list, but I didn't list it. It's global warming, Garbage Island, or the big swirling pool of trash, the vortex of trash in the Pacific Ocean, whatever you want to call that. I call it Garbage Island. I don't really know how solid or how... It's a terrible thing, I'm sure. I've heard it's the size of Texas. I don't know. I'm sure there's all kinds of bacteria and whatever. I'm sure it's killed lots of marine life. It's terrible. I can't talk about the bad things specifically. One of the biggest things that I see that's a problem is I do not believe that we are sustainable yet. We are not doing things that we're going to be able to continue to do. That's what sustainable is. Like, you've reached some sort of a cyclical pattern where, you know, from year to year, you're able to repeat things. We're still on a trajectory of change so severe. Severe, is that the right word? We aren't sustainable yet. It is still up in the air as to whether human beings are going to continue into the 22nd and 23rd centuries and beyond. It is a question still. Now, in the cosmos, perhaps somewhere it isn't a question. I don't know. I feel like it isn't a question, but I also feel like it is a question. And it's probably because there are multiple universes. And they're all on different frequencies, and they kind of all coexist right here and now. Because everything is right here and now, and everything is frequencies. Long frequencies of universes and eeny weeny short ones of Plancks. And everything in between. You have planets and... Anyway. So everything exists. And so all possibilities are ours. We can do this any way we want to. It wasn't that many months ago, I remember a thing I used to say, and I'm going to see if I can resurrect it, because it's interesting. As soon as I said, because it's interesting, it fled my mind. Okay, I don't actually remember what it was. So never mind. If it comes back up, I'll bring it back up. But what I was saying earlier is that we do have a pathway out of this wilderness, and it is to get off of fossil fuels. You're just not even going to believe how that's going to energize the system. When we find our true alternative sources of energy, which is not, absolutely not going to be clean fusion. Although, you know what? Clean fusion at some point may have a place. I'm not, if there is a place for centralized power production in our future, and there may still be, but ultimately the answers are not going to come from things that are going to have, it's not going to be centralized power with a necessity to distribute that power out to the different homes by way of an electrical grid delivered through power wires and such. That's what's going to go away. We're not going to need wires. There's no need for wires. The way that the matrix actually works, everything that we need to do, all energy work and communications and moving about the world, transport, everything, none of it needs the energy doesn't need the wires to function. We just need to understand how the matrix functions, how the grid works, how source energy works, how the Plancks work, how the vacuum fluctuations work, how they connect to one another, how they spin with one another. And when they go into spin, they create what we call the physical world. And when they are not spinning, they are what we call 0-point energy. That's what it is. That's what we are. We are a field phenomenon. And as such, we got to understand ourselves that way. And so, of course, the field wants a win-win position. It doesn't make any sense for the field to want you to just take it all to yourselves and, enslave all the rest of them. That doesn't work. That's why Hitler ultimately did not succeed, because he was wrong about how he conceived the universe, what he thought the rules of the game were. You know, how he thought his own and others' pieces operated on the board, you know? Oh, we've got the master race, and so there is no way that we can lose. And all the way up to the end, he was absolutely convinced that they would win because he had locked into this inflexible win, lose, physically. It was the way he was King Watiko, by the way. But Watiko is a thing that sort of can plague any human being. All human beings are subject to Watiko disease, which I haven't explained or anything, so any new audience just went, what? What are you talking about? Watiko disease, the Watiko itself is a Native American term, and the person who uses it all the time, a wonderful wounded shaman kind of character named Paul Levy. And he's beautifully poetic. He's got all kinds of wonderful things to say. His whole position is that quantum physics, there is a message within quantum physics that's going to save us. It's an understanding. I totally agree with them. It's this who am I, this understanding of who I am is embedded in when you understand the quantum field, you come to understand who we are. And then you understand who everybody else is too, and you are no longer fooled by the masks of the demon. Demonic energy is actually just us doing this thing that turns the energy backwards. It looks so frightening and evil and such, but it really is. The universe is benevolent and beneficent and kind, and the board is set up so much in our favor that it's almost not even a game, except for the fact that it's so easy to lose track of the game has enough complexity that there really is plenty of game there. But what I'm saying is when you understand the laws of the universe very, very clearly and don't spend any time crossing your own energy stream or anyone else's. I mean, actually, I'd have to clarify what I mean by that. It just means you aren't projecting unkind projections on yourself or others. That's what I mean by that. It doesn't have anything to do with what anybody else is thinking, because what other people are thinking is actually not your business. You can hope all you want that that they're doing well and that that they're finding their kind and loving and truthful alignment and see you in loving, kind ways. You can hope that. But how other people take you is not your business. And if you spend any time on that being not your business, you don't have the bandwidth to be paying attention to what is your business. So what is your business? Well, your business is don't cross your energy stream. Don't do that. Don't go negative. Don't. Now, I find that I can do it more readily. I can do all of these things that we're going to be talking about because I have drawn my view of the road ahead of me much closer to the vehicle of my car. So I'm not really looking all that far down the road. I'm only looking a little ways down the road. I try not to get too fixated on specifics of the material reality around me, not fixated on them. I'm using them as, you use everything around you. It's the road you're driving on. Just don't get attached to it or you can't keep moving down the road, for one thing. The objects around you are going to move. Everything is spinning. You are spinning. Everything around you is spinning, and sometimes it spins with you, and sometimes it spins off in another direction. The objects and the beings, the ones that rotate into your life, and then, sometimes they swing back out of your life. And as a matter of fact, everyone is doing that. Some are in closer proximity to you. But, Tesla used to say, if you want to understand the world, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And I would add one more. Think in terms of spin. It is all spinning, and it is all spin. And I think of it as, I think of it as there are two main kinds of spin, two kinds of organizational spin in the universe somehow. One is a vortex of coherent spin. It's organizing things. This spin is organizing things. It's in the field of its orbit. It's capturing cooperative components to its desires, sweeping them up in the field around them, and organizing into structures. That's what half of it is. And the other vortex of spin is chaotic energy. It's spitting out the other direction. It's the vortex of Shiva energy somehow. It's the destructive forces. It's the organization of a good hurricane, It's that kind of organization. And somehow there's, both of these are two forces that are going on in the universe. Now that's just my own thought. But it is all spin. It is all spinning. You may not realize that because relative to you, things don't look like they're spinning, but we're all spinning. We're all spinning together. But each and every individual one of us is spinning at a slightly different rate, or at least in a different position on the grid. Actually, we're all spinning at different frequencies, in different positions. We're spinning in, and we're all spinning together on this planet, and this planet is spinning around a sun, and that sun is spinning around a galaxy, and at every one of these points, you've got to add that next spin up. You add it in, and by the time you're done, I believe perhaps when you add in all spins, the ones that we know of that we can add in and the ones that we don't know of that we can add in, you probably add it all up, and all of the spin adds up to the speed of light. We're probably all spinning at the speed of light. We're all light beings. We're made of light. You're not made of matter, you're made of light. And what you're actually doing as you move through the universe, move through your life, is you are focusing desire onto the quantum field, the field of quanta, the little Plancks, the Planck oscillators, the matrix of So, us understanding this and understanding ourselves is going to have some huge implications to the 22nd century. Actually, it's going to have some huge implications to the second half, and up maybe even sooner than that. Like now, I don't know. We're going into the second quarter of the 21st century. I think, I don't know. It could, I'm not Abraham. I'm just a private individual, and quite frankly, I'm nobody, and I don't want my identity to really be a big part of this. I mean, it can be a part of it in the sense that, yeah, all of these words are coming out of a human being who has a personality, who had a life, up until this point, who has a history, who has a future, who has a name and things like that, just like you do. But the position that I'm coming from, I want it to be kind of any man, planet Earth, any man or woman, planet Earth. We are all so different. We are all incredibly different, way more different than perhaps we give it credit for. Each and every one of us, at least these days, was raised by different parents. I was even raised by different parents than my 3 full siblings. Because my parents were very different people from the time that those young, wide-eyed hopefuls in the early 1950s, after the war, raising their first child, and then, the middle children as they are getting a little better at it, and then the baby of the family, that's the position I held, where they've kind of given up on a lot of the things that they tried at first that didn't work, and the moving parts of life and the world are getting to be more, so that by the time they got to me, they kind of they sort of let me raise myself a little bit more. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for everything, actually. I wouldn't have changed a thing. And would I have changed things? Well, of course I would change things, but then I wouldn't have changed a thing. Of course I wouldn't change a thing. Everything is what it is for a reason, and everything is where it is for a reason. And you are here for a reason. We are all here for a reason. If you're here, you are part of the sacred whole, and you are necessary and cannot be subtracted. Somehow, I know this to be true. If you are here, you are needed, and you shouldn't have to prove your worth or prove your value to the whole in order to justify your continued existence. Just the fact that you are here means that you are part of an exclusive club that needs to be here. For one thing, we are not separate. Like I said earlier, we're a field phenomenon. And we are a wholeness that every individual in the collection is pointing at. It's like, I say this all the time, your neighbor is your unknown self made visible. That's a quote from Khalil Gibran. And I used to think it was from the Prophet, but it's not from the Prophet. It's from a different work that he did. And right off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is, but I know he's the one who said it. He might not have been the only one who said it. It's a really obvious... He's the one who said, God is love. Well, he may not have been the only one who said that, but I like it. Your neighbor is your unknown self made visible. And back in the 20s or 30s or whenever it was that he would have said that, I think that's when... Hold on one second. All right, looks like he was born in 1883 and died in 1931. So, yeah, 20s, 30s, that's exactly when he would have written this. Anyway, let's see. Why do I think this is going to save us? Because when we plug our civilization into a different energy source, just watch how everything changes. The world that we think we know right now is going to shift under our feet in a really good way. In a really, it's going to add so much energy to the system. There are 8 billion souls who want something to do. We have all kinds of problems to solve, and we have invented all of the technology needed to solve every problem that we've got. All the ones that I said, the garbage island and the I don't know how to get him to quit. The garbage island and the drowning polar bears and the global warming and the war. All of those things are going to be solved, or at least a whole lot of it's going to make a big difference. It's going to make a big difference. I think that our centralized energy system is creating our centralized power system. You know, why you have a country that a global superpower with a president who virtually has the power of life and death over the planet. You know, has the control of nuclear codes that, if launched, could destroy the planet. It's that sort of thing, you know. We've got to take a good hard look at ourselves, because in order for us to be trusted with the next stage of our development, we've got to understand that we're all in this together. We've got to understand that we are a field phenomenon. And what I do does affect you. And what you do does affect me. And we don't need to be childish about it. And, now that I have discovered that what I do affects you, I can be all Loki, all Shiva, all demon, and, mess with it just to be a troll. Because there is that energy going on out there. There's hugely that energy going on out there in the field. And it continues because, I believe, because we don't understand who we are. We don't understand how it works. Well, who are we? First of all, you are a vibrational being in a vibrational universe. You really, really are. And your main equipment is comprised of two main components. One is the physical apparatus that you're somewhat familiar with, but you're probably not completely familiar with it if you don't understand the whole system. You're only seeing a piece of it, and so you're not really familiar. So you got your physical self that that's your conventional, expirational self that you can see and smell and touch and all that. And then you have another aspect of you. It's your connection to source energy, but it's more than that. Think of it as an aspect of your own cosmic vibrational anatomy. It's in touch with the rest of the world. It's vibrationally feeling all things. It's holographically connected to the information of all things, so you can trust that she knows what she's talking about. And she has bigger eyes and bigger projects than you. And it doesn't just toggle out from tiny you at the body level to boom, I'm all the way out to the multiverse, although it does go all the way out to that level. You have other levels and other layers, too, of you. Other layers of the projects that you're about, that you may have been working at for the last 150, 200 years through iterations of yourself in conjunction with other souls. Maybe you've been interested in the development of power production for the civilization of humanity, and you've been working on it and so you find yourself. I find it really interesting that a very powerfully important boyfriend that I had, he showed me fractals back in the 80s, was so interested, and it was just so interesting to him, and planted a seed of something to me. Then my late husband was an electrician and really interested in power supply and energy sources and energy supply and all of that, how that works, and giving it to humanity. And then the one I'm married to now, he spent his career launching rockets into outer space. And what was his major in college, although he didn't end up doing anything much on the practical side. He's an electrical engineer. An electrical engineer that launches rockets into outer space. And my late husband was an electrician. Is there some reason why I keep gravitating? Because I certainly was not consciously interested in any of these things. And yet I keep moving around with certain parts in the field around. What I'm saying is I think we're bigger projects than we realize. You know, that the things that you're interested in and the things that you care about, you have been interested in them for longer than the lifetime that you are in right now. Because who you really are is a continuum that has been going on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. You are eternal, you are permanent. You exist. And there's nothing you can do to change that. But it's not just that. It's, you know, that which you are and that which you care about continues. Although the matter around you is always in constant change. So deal with that. Deal with how does that add up to what you're looking at and what you're living? Because holy moly schmoly, who am I? Who am I? And what is this world that I find myself, you know? It's almost like you have coalesced yourself into an avatar on a board playing a game. It's a board game theory. I think there's a field of thought that envisions the world just that way. I can kind of see it that way. When you die, the only thing serious that happens there is that you have to develop you get to develop yourself a new avatar. And of course that's what you want to do. You know? You're going to want to do that because life is fun. Life is supposed to be fun. Did you know life is supposed to be fun? If you're living here on planet Earth right now and focused firmly, your eyes and attention focused firmly on everything that's wrong and broken and sick and needs healing in this world, then you may not realize that we're here for fun. You may not realize that this is supposed to be fun, and it's going to be fun. It's really, really, really going to be fun. But we've got to get into the right spirit of this, understand who we are, what we're dealing with, how the field is responsive to us, how what we focus on, what our attention is on, and how we are focused is everything. It's the secret to what you're going to get is based on how you are dialing in to what you are focusing on. You get what you think about, whether you want it or not. And Abraham points out that subjects are not really as cut and dry as you think they are. Every subject is like a stick with two ends to it. On one end of the stick is the subject, and on the other end of the stick is the absence of the subject. So you might be thinking that you're thinking about money because you're thinking about the stick of money, but the vibrational frequency that you're on is actually the opposite side of it. You're focused on the side of the stick where the money isn't there. The money that you want is not there. And so it's causing a frequency that it's unplugging you from your source, because when you are plugged into source, it feels very good. When you're plugged into source, I'm going to tell you how it feels. And we plug into source all the time. All the time. It's such a banal feeling, you may not recognize what it is. When you're just at rest, when you're feeling just generally okay, satisfied. You're not, nothing's pulling you particularly one way or another. Your mind is just kind of, my husband does this all the time. He's, I might turn to him and say, what are you thinking about? And he'll go, nothing. He's just kind of, he might be watching TV. He's not really thinking about anything. He's watching TV, whatever. So I know that a lot of people think that this feeling of being connected to Source is going to be more profound than it is. Now, it can get really profound. It can. Don't get me wrong. But just the very act of being plugged into Source is a pretty common and ordinary kind of feeling. But within this feeling, there's no angst there. You feel satisfied. You're contented, you're just kind of like the kind of feeling you might feel if you're sitting on a riverbank, you're back against a tree, looking at a beautiful river, fishing. There's no soaring elation, but there's deep-seated comfort, Now, some people might say, well, I don't feel that ever. But that's because you're not used to a momentum of the Source feeling getting going. That's what, by the time you have gotten in the car, made it to the fishing grounds, you've settled yourself, you've got the right day and the weather's all good, and you've settled yourself into, you're back against the tree. You've found the right place on the right river with a tree next to the river, and you've settled yourself in, and your eyes are now looking at the beautiful water. You've got a tremendous momentum going on by that time. By the time you've made it to that position, however, all of that is just a momentum of this kind of contented. People are in that situation all day. Well, maybe not all day, but they're in and out of it. I feel good, I don't feel good, I feel good, I don't know. You're in and out of it all the time. If you could get a momentum going of it without the interjections of trash talk against yourself or others, because it's that negative mind working inside your own head against you. That's your biggest problem. That's everybody's biggest problem. That is mankind's biggest problem. That naysayer within our heads telling us we're not worthy, we're not, we have to prove that we're worthy in order to justify us being here, in order to we got to get that voice to shut down. Now, that's why there's lots of processes, which I don't give any processes. Abraham's got lots of processes. In their book, Ask and It Is Given, it's a great book, by the way. And I adhere to, I believe, the universe that I speak of is a universe that agrees with Abraham. She's not wrong about anything. I push back against absolutely nothing that Abraham says. I understand what Esther is talking about. I understand what Abraham is talking about when Esther opens her mouth and channels them. And they are right. We are vibrational beings in a vibrational universe, and you have an inner being that knows who you are, that knows what you want, that is emitting she is operating on a particularly high vibrational frequency. Very inclusive, very, very, it's a vibration that actually amounts to very loving, kind, connected, supportive, supported, expansive, interested, eager. It's that kind of energy. That's where your inner being is. Where are you? Because you are the one who can take the two of you into darkness. Your inner being never goes into darkness. So that was incorrect. Remember I said you are two beings. You are made of, you are a binary configuration, if you will. The eternal aspect of you, and then the expirational aspect of you. The formless aspect of you, and the form, the conventional form. You are vibrational and conventional. You are, what other way can you describe it? But both of these you are you. I think of them as macro me and micro me. That's one way of saying it. Me with a capital M and me with a small m. But the two of them together comprise the me that is me. And that's who I am, and that's who you are, and that's who we all are, and our inner beings are all one. They're all one large inner being that is dancing with. And so, of course, the position you're looking for is not the win-lose. It's the win-win. We are a whole field of information. And as human beings, there's really only one of us here, and we are a superorganism with a circulatory system, and all of our systems are for all of us together. And so, of course, it's important that we come together collectively and be a collective self. But it's also really important that we understand who we are so we don't come together and collectively be a negative self. We should never come together and collectively be a negative self. That's actually what the world wars were, was humanity collectively coming together and being our negative self, acting on our anger and our fear, believing in the us and them paradigm. I don't care which us, and whether you were the us or whether you were the them. It doesn't matter which side of that you were on. There is no us and them, and we have got to drop that in our consciousness. We've got to drop it because it's all of the German people buying into that was what caused that whole thing to start into motion. And then us believing it when we saw them. Well, of course there was an us and them. I say there's no us and them. Well, of course there is an us and them. I'm not blind. But ultimately, there is no us and them. That's what I'm saying. We've all got to get past that. You know? And ultimately, to get to where we need to go, we need pushback against no one. There is no one that we need to push back against. Not even those of us who are responsible for, ultimately, how we're going to get where we really want to go is to understand ourselves and understand source energy, and then just plug into source energy and get on with the process of living joyful, beautiful, co-creative life. And those who are in charge of the oil fields right now, when they get a load of where we're really going in the 21st century, they will leave it in the ground too. They will want to leave it in the ground too. But we've got to get to that point. We've got to get to that point where people understand, first of all, over-unity devices are possible. This should be screamed from every rooftop. And then first thing people will do is they will say, what the F is an over-unity device, and why do I care whether it's possible? Well, an over-unity device is a device that would put out more energy than it would take to run the damn thing. Let's see, what time are we at? And why does it matter if they're possible? Because that's the answer, people. It's the answer to us not continuing to burn fossil fuel. The over-unity devices are going to be the bridge that's going to take us from where we are in our energy paradigm at the moment and where we're going to in the future, which is going to be a place where all of our devices are already plugged into source. When you build the device in the first place, that little part of it that used to be the battery or the power supply that would supply the power to the workings of whatever your device is, whether it's an electric mixer or whether it's a cell phone or a space heater or whatever it is, right there, instead of having that, it would have a little solid state thing that would connect it directly to the source of all things. It would connect it directly to 0 point energy right there at the point of the device. Now, at one point, I imagined that it would be a small device sitting in the house that all the devices that you're using plug into, like you tune them to that frequency. Maybe it's that. I don't know, but I know it's possible because there's unlimited amount of energy everywhere. The source of all things is everywhere. Because this is what the source of everything is. It's everything interacting with everything all the time. It's all the Plancks cosmically touching one another and jiggling together and transferring their information to one another across all the scales. There's all these scales of different things going on, small and then bigger, and like there's at the Planck scale, you've got the one scale. Then you get up to the atomic scale, that's actually another scale. From the Planck to the proton is a whole nother scale. There are so many Plancks inside of a proton. I haven't said this one for a long time. If you grew every one of those Plancks up from the size that it is up to the size of a grain of sand, now, the proton that all of those Plancks are in, spinning within this little enclosed integer unit of packet of information that is a proton. It's a vortex of ether spinning. It's a vortex of the Planck field. These little Planck oscillators spinning. That's what a proton is. So, if you grew every one of the Plancks up to the size of a grain of sand, that proton would be from our sun to Alpha Centauri, make it a sphere. That's the diameter of the sphere. Fill it with sand. That's how much sand, that's how many Plancks there are in the Planck field of a single proton. As a matter of fact, it matches the mass of the universe. There is a relationship between the Planck field of every proton and all of the protons and all of the rest of the universe. There is a relationship between those two. There's a mathematical relationship between those two. And I have a slide that demonstrates that, as a matter of fact. I'm going to have to go here in about, 25 minutes. I've got about 25 more minutes before this alarm goes off. And I'm going to go get my husband off to the ballpark. No, he's not going to the ballpark. He's going to the golf course today. Yeah, he doesn't go to the ballpark this early. He only goes to the golf course this early. I think he has a 7:20 tee time. No, this is my, is it this one? No, this is the one that shows that as those Planck oscillators go into spin, as they come basically as they come across the event horizon of the 0 point energy field, they go from particle to virtual particle as they're popping in and out of existence. When they come across the event horizon and come into existence, they're spinning. Spin is baked into the cake. That's what that picture illustrates. This isn't the one. Emergence of matter. It's this one. This one is the one that shows the relationship between the inside of a proton and all the protons in the universe. Let's see. Screening mechanisms at the universal scale connecting the surface information of the universe to the surface information of each proton. Relationship between the vacuum internal energy information infrastructure of a proton size entity to all the protons of the universe. That's what this picture is. I'm telling you, this appears in a paper. It's this paper right here. It's called The Origin of Mass and Nature of Gravity. In my list of in my playlist of things that I want you to connect to at the very least, I have talked about making a rolling list instead of having it be the same damn thing every single time, and I haven't done that yet. I don't really know what I'm doing with this show yet. I don't know where it's going. I can feel all of the possibilities rattling around inside of me. You know, all of the ways that this information could affect people. You know, how they live their lives, how we live our lives, how we organize within one another. You know, because we are a single superorganism that we should be setting up in that way, where all of us are part of the structure, part of this infrastructure of humanity that's creating goods and circulating them around with one another. And then we circulate around because we love to travel. We just love to travel. It's one of the things that we do for our own joy and our own desire. And I believe very strongly that that is going to be a big part of the circulatory system of mankind throughout all of its time period. Its desire to not only inhabit and occupy the spaces and live our lives in the spaces that we live, but periodically pick ourselves up and move around the world and visit one another and see what one another is doing. Because it's just fun, you know? How are you solving these problems? How are you dealing with these issues? You know, what does your food taste like? What do your homes look like? How do you, you know, perform these functions? Pretty cool. I'm sure that that's going to be part of our future, visiting one another. And there will probably be an elaborate and interesting system of home exchange, where I'm a traveler. I live in my home, but I love to travel. And when I travel, I put my own home up on the travel exchange, and other travelers who are coming to visit my area, you know. And so they used to do this when we lived in Africa. There was kind of a system of international people that came and went. And the international community of people who were coming and going had information that they exchanged amongst each other. And so, you know, when you came in to the country, there was a list of cooks and guards and gardeners and pets and different things. Outgoing people had to leave their rental behind, and their pet and their staff and stuff, because their job was only going to be for a couple of years to begin with. So they went and came in, worked for a couple of years, and then they left. And when they left, you know, all of their stuff goes up on this board, and people coming in, they're like, okay, and then they shop for a cat and a dog and a cook and a house and whatever from this board of people. Anyway, the point of that is, oh, actually, it was more the people who lived there sometimes got home leave. What we did, Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Somebody that we knew went back to Canada for home leave after we had left Africa. But we knew them, and so we came back from the United States and we stayed in their house while they... It doesn't matter. That was a lot of words for a very small point. We're going to be... we've got a great future ahead of us. And we actually have way too much to do to waste any of our time on questions of whether or not we're going to go extinct. Let's just not go extinct, okay? We can fix all of our problems. We actually have all the technology we need to solve every one of the problems that I say in my great litany of sorrows that I, always mention, so that because we do have issues that we need to deal with on planet Earth. Even though we are here for joy, we are here for co-creation, we are here forever and ever. There's nothing serious going on here. Everything's going to be just fine. We all have an inner being. Every one of us has an inner being that knows exactly who we are and where we are headed. And all of the young ones coming in who have such different viewpoints, there is a spirit within them that is non-resistant, that knows something. Now, there is part of them that does not necessarily understand what's been happening in the movie, because they just got here. But there are spirit things that they understand. There is energy things that they understand. And we should partner with them and feel their joy and their energy and kindly guide them to an understanding of where we have been and where we're going in this movie without dampening their spirits and trying to tell them that we have to stay in a state of, solemn remembrance of the wars that have come before, because we don't need to give them that kind of energy. But all the time I walk into places where I say something and I realize that I've just said something that's going to be misinterpreted because I didn't fully... So yesterday I think I was talking about how special it is that we live in a time where there's so many generations of us all inhabiting the world at the same time. And every single generation has a wisdom to it that needs to be listened to. It's like you have to listen to all of the people inside of your own head. They comprise a whole village, and you need to listen to all of them. You actually even need to listen to the negative ones. You just should never, ever, ever act from the negative one's perspective. The negative ones are telling you positive things just from a bass-ackwards position, but there's good information there. And they're not wrong about what they recognize out in the world that they don't like. They're not wrong about the recognition of something chaotic out there in the field, that negative thing that they are is resonating with. So listen to everybody, including the negative ones. We just don't want to be acting on the negative ones. The negative ones need to be soothed, need to be cheered up, need to be lightened, need to be... we need to soothe ourselves and each other back to better behavior. We cannot punish one another into better behavior. Now, I know that that's the way our criminal justice system has gotten, It's trying to punish people into better behavior. But it hasn't been all that damn successful, has it? If it was really all that successful, then our criminal justice system should be, accomplishing more than it's accomplishing. Recidivism is really high, and crime doesn't seem to be going away. Does it? No, it doesn't. Because that's not really... I'm not going to push against the criminal justice system either, though, because there's a lot of things in there that it's doing that are a good thing. All of the record keeping that it does. And when you go into a court of law, there's a really interesting thing that happens in the court of law. There's a whole system in place to get to the bottom of what happened, and then puts it on paper and records it forever. It's like part of the story of mankind being told, being gotten to the bottom of and then told to us all, this is what happened. It's all part of us understanding who we are. That's the whole point of the whole exercise, is us to understand who we are. Now, what happens when we get to the point where we understand who we are? Oh, look at who we are. Ooh, isn't that interesting and blessed and wonderful? Now what do? Now go create! Use the information of who you are and how this works to go out there in the world and make what you want happen. What do we want? We want peace on earth, goodwill towards men. We want joyful co-creation with all of the rest of humanity. We want to have fun. We want to build fun things. We want everybody to be fed. We want everybody to be clothed. We want everybody to be sheltered in cool, creative, interesting 21st, 22nd century kind of ways. Ways that don't destroy the biosphere while we do it, We want to co-create with the biofield and re-garden Eden, planet Eden. We could rename Earth. We could rename it Eden. Except for if we did that, all the religious people would get the wrong idea. But you know what? The religious people aren't wrong. They sense that there's an organizing force. They call it God. And then they got all kinds of rules about, what God thinks about what they should do and what... It isn't exactly what you think it is. But you're right about the God thing. There is a benevolent organizing force that is trying to organize us. And if we would allow it to organize us, we could organize ourselves into beneficent, harmonious, fun, beautiful, creative, connected, a creative, connected manner where we are all cared for and all taken care of. We can do that, and there's nothing wrong with us doing it. And it doesn't matter. We could have 10 billion people on planet Earth. We could, and there would still be no poverty. How would we do that? Well, we do that by co-creating with the rest of the biofield. With the rest of it's a morphogenetic field, which means it's a field of information. And if we tap into that and operate as one with it, we can do anything we need. The biggest thing I see right now that is in our way is our current state of energy. That's the biggest problem at the moment, because it is causing our carbon footprint. It's causing a lot of our really destructive behavior. The Willow Project and the idea that we might go up to the Arctic, up to Alaska, the great central reserves of oil. We shouldn't even think of them as oil reserves. Screw them. Screw what's up there in Alaska as oil reserves. Think of it as the last natural ecosystem nature reserve. That's what we ought to be reserving up there, preserving, not the freaking oil fields. We should never touch those oil fields. There's no reason for it. The only reason for it is we've got a momentum of us working with that infrastructure because that's what we've kind of been guided and encouraged to do, lo these last more than 100 years, where we could have incrementally been figuring out other ways to power our technologies. But no, it all came back to fossil fuel, fossil fuel, fossil fuel. And there were people along the way who had other ideas, and all those other ideas were squashed. Go watch the movie The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. And if you doubt it, the claims in that movie are so huge that I would say that I think that you need to really know that Mr. Greer is lying, and all of these people are, if you listen to, they're not lying. They're not lying. You need to be more credulous to the world. I'm one of those people that started out very gullible. I believed everything. And in a way, I still believe everything. I input everything into my system. And I can feel right away things that resonate with larger things and things that are chaotic and bang around in a weird way and don't mesh, and I can tell right away because I believe everything. And it's sort of like throwing everything against the wall, and then the stuff that really goes together comes together. In other words, some of it sticks. But you have to put everything through in order to understand what sticks. You don't prejudge the thought before you've believed it. Because your beliefs can be changed in a heartbeat. Beliefs aren't fixed at all. Your thought processes, your iOS, your internal operating system, is so much more flexible than you realize it is. And then you realize, and the physical world around me and my relationship to it is way less fixed than I thought it was. There is a physical world out there, and you do have a physical, or a whatever kind of world you want to talk about in here. There is both of those things, and there is a relationship between the outside world and you and your inside world, but it may or may not be exactly the relationship that you think that it is. It may not be as one-to-one as you think, or in the place and way that you think. I know sometimes I talk about this plug that we have within ourselves. Oh, how many minutes do I have? I have about... Actually, what time did I set my alarm? Is it 6:15 or is it 6:10? It's 6:10. That means in a few minutes I'm going to have to stop this. And I may come back. I may be able to come back. Sometimes it's hard for me to come back, because I go off and I do more physically oriented things, and then my life kind of goes off that way. Because I have a whole life over there in my physicality, and then I have this whole world here that includes the whole world, includes who you are, who I am, who we all. It includes the inner being. It includes all the universe. I can do it more easily starting off first thing in the morning because I haven't been thinking about anything. I just wake up from bed and I don't really question too much. I tromp downstairs and into my studio, plop myself down in my chair, and start riffing about the universe. I think we're going to be okay, and yet we do have serious problems. I think I can see what the pathway out of the wilderness is, but I think it's also helpful if more people could see this. We need to be on a different energy source, and us finding our new energy source is going to be intimately combined with us understanding who we are. because we are source energy. We are extensions of source energy. And there is only one of us here. There's only one source, and we are all it. And we need to drop our resistance to each other, our resistance to love and connection and beauty and truth and the future that is firmly in front of us. We just need to understand the pathway to it. And with that, I'm going to stop for a minute. If I think that I can come back and take another run at it, I will try. Otherwise, I may just call this a day, although it's a little short. It's less than an hour and a half. Maybe I'll just, I'll say goodbye for today. And I'll pick all of this up again tomorrow. We have so much that I didn't cover. Every day there's so much that I can't quite get to, you know? About us being genetically modified, and all about the paper that's going to describe the origin of mass and nature of gravity. I've still got that up, you know? All the movies that you need to watch, and who we are. Where are we going? So until later, or until tomorrow, please do your best. Love yourself. Love each other. We're all going to be fine. And until tomorrow, may the source be with you.